Welcome back. Well, today we have on from the Roberts Rules Study Group, we have Jonathan Adler and Joe Milliman. And what we're going to talk about today is kind of a continuation because we've talked a little bit about this before, but it's really how can a group change its mind? So I'd like to welcome both of you today, Joan and Jonathan. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to hold up this book, and people can get this obviously just about anywhere nowadays. Robert's Rules of Order in brief. Of course, the full book is probably about 3 times as thick as that. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah. But there you go. There's the book that you can pick up.
And I think a copy of that has been provided to every director of every corporation.
I think you're right. Yeah. So it's a good kind of an overview. So we are going to talk about how can a group change its mind. So I'll start with you, Joan, and then I'll go to Jonathan here. And first, by the way, welcome. And I know you both have a background in Robert's Rules. I know you certainly have been like a parliamentarian and all. And,
I am presently an official parliamentarian of one club and a parliamentarian of a large central committee of a certain political party in Orange County.
Very good. All right. And that takes probably years of kind of just practice and training and understanding of Robert's Rules, right?
Or at least a few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So how can a group change its mind? And we're going to bring up, there's 4 points here that we're going to talk about. And I think it's...
Well, I think Jonathan was going to tell you why they even want to change their mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
This kind of illustrates how pragmatic Robert's Rules is, how much common sense it has.
Yeah.
Obviously, it has to provide for a way for people to change their mind.
Exactly.
And so it balances a couple of factors. You don't want at one meeting the losing side coming back, every half hour to try to, do the same thing again, have its way. Perhaps when somebody goes to the bathroom and the votes change, or somebody leaves or joins the meeting. So there's a need for some stability and some respect for motions in a given meeting. But nonetheless, in a meeting, it provides a way called a motion to reconsider for the body in that meeting to change its mind and to do something it had failed to do earlier or vice versa.
Okay. And of course, the 4 points here.
There are
that
actually
we're go
four different ways you can do it. As Jonathan mentioned, within the meeting you can reconsider, but after it's all said and done, there are 3 other things you can do. You can rescind the motion, amend the motion, or you can revisit it through a renewal. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And of course, the reason this comes up is people change their minds or circumstances change, but it's important that people don't do this willy-nilly. So the ways that we do these things are a little more difficult than just making the first motion in the first place.
And you were, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're talking about changing its mind, are you talking about during the discussion process, or are you also talking about once the motion and or the resolution has passed or failed, to come back to it a week from now, 5 months from now?
No, the latter, Ken.
Okay.
What we're talking about is motions that have been debated, voted on, and passed or failed. And when the body has new facts or circumstances change, or they just think that they've made a mistake and they want to come back to it and change something that they did previously.
Okay. All right. So the first one, the motion to reconsider must be made by a member who voted on the winning side. I find that interesting.
Well, so there's sort of a practical reason for that. Apart from the fact of helping to leave things settled, if there's no one who voted on the winning side who's willing to make a motion to reconsider, then the chances of anything changing are slim and none.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
that
that's
makes
the
sense.
test. That's the rule.
Now, a time limit.
It has to be done within the meeting where the motion was passed or failed.
Okay.
And that is the only time you can reconsider it.
Okay.
You can't do it after that.
All right. Now, so you obviously, both of you are not talking about the fact that a resolution passes and then a year later
No.
other facts come up, they have to do a new resolution that supersedes the previous one, right? That's a whole different thing.
Ken, there are motions to do that.
Okay.
And the only difference is the vote required and the method required for the group to change its mind, to keep some stability for the motion. So the motion to reconsider is defined as one that occurs within the same meeting.
Got it.
And so all it takes is someone who voted on the winning side. You want to pick
Yeah.
up from me?
Yeah.
If I were doing this, I'd get the attention of the chair somewhere when they're not doing main business and say something like, Madam Chair, point of order, or parliamentary procedure, a point of parliamentary procedure. And then I'd proceed to say, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider.
Okay.
And hearing nothing from the chair, I'd move and I'd say, Madam Chair, I move to reconsider the vote on whatever the subject is, and remind the person that I was on the prevailing side. I was on the winning side or I was on the losing side,
Okay.
depending on what happened with the motion.
So I get better understanding, kind of
Please
set
do.
what I'm understanding the scenario will be. Let's say the first hour of the meeting, something comes up, and then you've moved on to other parts of the meeting. And towards the end of the meeting, is that, if they wanted to, can they say that, or is it the time passed?
No, as long as it's within the meeting.
Okay.
And it could be any time. You know, you think it over. We voted to have $500 given to this charity.
Okay.
And it went down. And maybe I think, oh, we should have given it. And so I say, and I voted it down. But now I've changed my mind. And
You know-
so I interrupt with a
Okay.
point of order and ask to be have this motion made. However, I make the motion, but that's not the end of it. Now then, the old motion comes back before the body to be reconsidered. And so it's actually a two-step process, which so Jonathan, why don't you tell us a little about that, why it's a two-step process?
Well, I will, but let me just say that in two clubs whose boards I serve on, that is a very common thing where money is going to be donated or given away to either charities or candidates or something, and there's sort of more or less a fixed amount of money, and you start down the list of potential donees, and you realize that perhaps you've given away too much or too little to the people at the beginning. So that's a common situation. So why is it a two-step process? Just to be clear, the group has to first decide to reconsider what it did or failed to do before, and then vote on that, discuss it, debate it. That motion has to pass in order to reopen the initial issue. You can't just force the group to go back and look at the prior thing by making a motion to reconsider. The group has to decide that.
Let me ask you, if someone makes that motion to reconsider, must the chair recognize that and say, okay, let's have a discussion? Can the chair say, no, I don't want to do that?
Once you make a motion, if it's seconded, the chair can't do that.
Okay, so once it's seconded, that's all it needs. Okay.
Well, I think we should say the chair shouldn't do that.
Right, but I'm just...
Some chairs
choose to do that.
don't like to follow the rules.
Right,
That's the whole purpose.
That's why I asked that, yeah.
That's the whole purpose of Robert's rules, to make things fair, and let the minority be heard, and help the group come to a decision.
Okay, we're going to move on here to the next part, making changes after previously adopted motion is finalized. And here we get to what I sort of asked before about rescinding, right?
Cushion fire.
Sure, and these are the ways a group changes its mind at a later meeting, be it the next meeting or half a year later or whenever. The words mean what they seem to mean. A motion to rescind is just to annul or remove or undo what was done before. A motion to amend means to change, to put new conditions on or take away old conditions. And what's important about this is that there's no time limit for when you can do this, and anyone can make such a motion. They do not have to be part of the winning side on the
Okay.
previous one.
Got it.
And then, of course, there's when a motion is previously defeated and somebody wants to bring it back, there could be a motion to renew the motion.
Okay. And as it says here, Joan, you give kind of an example about, in the next page, I move
slide.
to rescind the motion adopted by our June meeting to buy the Smith Farm, for example. Or as an amendment, I move to amend the motion adopted in our meeting by adding the words not to exceed or any kind of change like that.
Right, any
Yeah.
change like that. So we go ahead now. These motions can be made as if they were main motions.
Okay.
But there's a difference by how they're voted and how they're noticed. And I think Jonathan was going to talk
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, Roberts tries to protect the stability of motions to some extent by making the bar a little bit higher to change it.
Yeah.
And it has two sets of rules. They are designed to encourage the giving of notice, either orally or in writing, at a previous meeting, earlier meeting.
Okay.
If you do that, it only takes a majority to pass a motion to rescind or amend.
Okay.
If somebody springs the motion at the meeting without any notice, the bar is really high, and it requires a 2/3 vote of those present and voting.
Okay.
And then there's an alternative measure, but it's a high bar.
Right.
Well,
And I think we've seen that a few times before.
The alternative is a vote of the majority of the entire voting body.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's missing and you have to call them by phone, that's a problem.
Okay.
So,
So that's what we talked about on the slide after that, how to give notice of a vote.
okay, there's two ways to do it.
Okay.
In the meeting preceding the meeting where the motion's going to be made, a verbal announcement could be made. Just very simple.
Okay.
Or a written notice can go out with the agenda of the next meeting where the vote will occur.
Okay.
So it's two ways. And even if you were asleep, as Jonathan pointed out, and they made the announcement at the meeting, it would still be in the minutes.
Right. Exactly.
So there's plenty of time to get this out there.
Okay. And that's an important point. It would be, I guess, ideal if someone wanted to rescind or amend, and they did it in the agenda prep meeting, in the case of this community here. So therefore, people who are interested in that will see it on the agenda and say, oh, this is something that I was for and it passed a year ago, and now they're re-looking at it. I want to be at that meeting.
Right.
Right. So that would be the most ideal situation, correct?
It is certainly ideal that people get notice in advance of what's going to come up in a
Right.
reconsideration. So Roberts creates this little benefit that it only takes a majority of those
Yeah.
present and voting if you give advance notice.
Yeah. So renewal of motions. So explain that, how that works, and after it's been defeated, it's called renewal of motion.
Why don't you do this one,
Okay.
Joe?
Okay.
Well, this is actually to renew a motion is really to do it again,
Okay.
to make it again. But you can't do it unless it's been defeated. So if it didn't pass, that's the time to do it. Defeated motion can be repeated at this meeting and at the next meeting. It doesn't have to be the next meeting. Again, it can be done later.
Okay.
They have to, anyone can make it. You don't have to be on either side.
Mhm.
Just have to bring it up again. But the key is that it was defeated.
Okay. So obviously, if it was defeated at the meeting and maybe somebody they were in favor of it, and again, they'd go through the same step, meaning someone would have to second that and correct before they move on. Would that be right?
It would just be treated as the motion was in the first place. Somebody
Okay.
makes the motion, has to be seconded, debated, debate closed, voted on,
Okay.
passes or fails second time. Just allows the group to take into consideration new facts, new circumstances, maybe new membership.
Okay, very good. So I want to talk about your next meeting is going to be, I'm sorry.
Just a review, just a quick review, because
Sure.
this is a little strange.
Okay,
I mean, we don't always reconsider things. or take them into account again. So we've gone through 4 ways you can change your mind if you're in a group. And it's more difficult to change your mind than to do it positively the first time. So you can reconsider within the same meeting, or later you can rescind, that's wipe it out, amend it, change it, or if it has been defeated and you want to bring it up again, you can actually renew the motion. So that's just my
Okay.
way of review of what we were doing this morning.
All right.
And my comment on that is just, this is just another example of how Robert's Rules facilitates a group in doing what it wants to do, serves those values of protecting some
Right.
stability, but allowing the minority to be heard, the majority's will to prevail, and make things efficient.
All right.
Okay.
And if you'd like to find out more about this, the next meeting of the Roberts Rules Study Club will be on Saturday, this Saturday, 9 o'clock over at the Towers in their Clee Cub room. And if you would like to go or more information, I imagine people can just show up if they'd like.
Absolutely.
Okay, but
It's
if you'd
open to
like more
everyone.
info, call Mike Straziuso at 830-8717. Again, the Key Club room at the Towers this Saturday at 9 o'clock for the Roberts Rules Study Club. Thank you both.
Thank you, Ken. It's
All
a
right, you
pleasure.
cleared up a lot.
You're getting really expert at this, Ken.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll do a presentation one day.
Yes.
We'll see. All right, we'll
Thank
be
you.
right back.
Okay, thank you.
I'll tell you the most.